5. And good morning. This is March, and it's 2022. And as an American citizen, I have to ask, what are we doing? And who are we as a people? I have not seen the conversation in regards to how we're coordinating services in our local community and how those services are affecting or how we're measuring the benefit. We just don't have a voice at all. In America, it's kind of crazy. As you know, we as a people, African American people, were slaves in America. I wasn't no slave, and I don't even know what it feels like to be a slave. And quite frankly, I don't want to watch the movie Harriet Tubman, because all the things that were going on then wouldn't happen now. I would have to have some weapon or something. I just couldn't be like that. But okay, here we are. And it is 2022. And when you as a people have not been targeted for the measurement of the benefit, maintenance of effort is called, under Title I or under IDEA Part B, when the state has aligned services just for your people in the willful category, willful defiance that is, and when the harbor and the haven you have accepted as an offer of what would be free and appropriate, and it's not free and it's not appropriate, as there's no measurement of the benefit for the children who are enrolled in the harbor or the haven. And I just don't understand the number of children who are in the foster care system. And I don't see how people could just give their children up, but I don't see how people can murder their children or abuse their children to the point where abuse is real. There's so many things that I don't see that I do see here in Nevada, as the inability to participate in the system as to how they are providing services to the local people is a question as to how it's happening. And what is this one? Interactivity. I don't know what that means. Old questions, graphics. They have all these little things on the side. And they have this dashboard. I don't know what the dashboard does. And if you push it, I have no idea. Oh, look, it's got all these things down here showing you how your outreach is working, whatever. But I got to tell you, in America, if we don't figure out how we get to the table as a people, and I try to participate in different organizations and groups, only to find out is that they're all working in, what do you call this? They're working in unison. They're working together to create something that was not intended to create with the federal money. That's what happened. So they created these programs called the Prime 6 schools, and they created Victory and Zoom schools, and then they have magnet programs, and they're still creating magnet school programs. But what was the intent behind the magnet schools is what we must ask as a citizen. What are they doing besides self-aggrandizing? They're self-serving themselves. As, all education should be self-serving. But everybody should have the same rights. But when they don't have a child find person, and when at the legislative level they can talk about changing the color of money, it is an issue. And that's just real. I was going to go live on my phone, but then the option wasn't there. So I could go live on my laptop, and it really doesn't matter. I missed one phone call, my goodness. Oh, Sherry, I'm trying to help her. But the real deal is that in America, you have to know that as an American citizen, the obligation is what? To ensure that participation and engagement. And that's why, how are African Americans engaged? And we probably need to have the first historic African American university this side of the Mississippi, simply because they would like to pretend that Nevada is the entertainment capital of the world, and it is, as they have all these African American people on Regency, on show, on the Strip. But when it comes to the black people who live in the community, Well, they put people in office, but then they don't want to listen to the community at all. So failure is an option in America for black people. And that's why the word is compliance or die. If you fail to comply, you die in America. Do you understand that? How should we think about that? What should we think about that? Quite frankly, I think that's frightening. I have sons too, and I'm fearful every day, praying that my sons don't get caught up in a process that would eliminate their lives, because the word is compliance or death. And when you look at the outcomes of the public education system, and we understand that there's no accountability in the states across America, because we believe in states' rights. And somehow we're working together to ensure that the state can represent itself in what it's willing to do. So the state of Nevada has just provided services for the people who are in the legislative process or people who are participating. And I'm going to have to take a break right now. Hello? Yes? Okay. All right, so I'll see you between 9:30 and 10. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. So the nurse is coming, and my mom just got out of the hospital yesterday. And I was just trying to figure out, you know, as I'm watching this process of how public education happens here in Nevada, because it's totally different in California. In California, they do have, you know, laws that they do follow. But here in Nevada, I haven't found not one law that they follow here when it comes to public education. They don't follow the rules for Title I. They don't follow the rules for special education, as they don't have the manifestation data for the children who are being told to sign the contract for that, program they call the Harbor. And in the Harbor, that contract that the parents are signing, well, you sign away your rights. And I just never seen anything like this in my life. And as there are so many people in the juvenile system here, and 88% of the African American children are caught up in the juvenile system here, then I have to ask, well, what are we really doing as American citizens? Who are we as African Americans? As we have figured out that, we have Black caucus and we have Black elected officials. And there are quite a number of Black elected officials here in Henderson or Clark County, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's just true. There's quite a number of people who are in the educational system here in Nevada. But they're setting rules that are burdensome and too restrictive when it comes to providing measurable services for the people who are generating the money. And as Nevada has just gotten the money from the federal government and not applied it as it was required. And that is just the truth of the matter. So when I moved here, I just really didn't understand what was going on. I kept on trying to figure out, well, what's going on with Title I and what's happening with special education, and where's the legal assurances that the governing board or the state would have signed in order to ensure access happened for the children who are generating that money, and then not be able to find anything. And then to talk to people who would tell me what was above their pay grade. And I'm saying, okay, you have a pay grade, but I don't. As a citizen, I'm just an American citizen. And I have a right to know just what it is that you're doing with the federal dollars and how are you demonstrating that you are accessing all children. And when I seen that Nevada had already had this battle-born plan of 2024, now understand they had written their plan out to 2024. And in that plan, they had the $8 million to the Donors Choice Program. They had a $250,000 for an organization to come up with a different way that the federal government, that they could use the federal dollars. I mean, that was there. And they were encouraging people to apply for that grant. It was what the state had offered. But then they went into great detail about how they didn't follow the guidance from the federal government for No Child Left Behind or Goals 2000 or the Local Control Accountability Act or Every Child Succeed Act. I mean, they just didn't follow any of the guidance. And, I'm going to tell you, in a state in America, in any state in America, that the people have a right to do what the state, it's called states' rights. But if your people are living in the state and you have not exercised your voice for the failed services that you see for the people who look like you, then it is a problem. Because in America, we are only Americans and no more. And that's what I do know. I'm going to tell you, it's just unconscionable to think about what's happening here for the children who would get pulled into the harbor or the haven, as they would create a program for six children with behavioral issues. And this was an in-bed facility. And they talk about it as if they are really providing services for the children here in Nevada. And then they would open up a program here for sex-trafficked girls, 60 out of 350,000 children who are enrolled in the district. They would open up a program for 60 children. And I'm going to tell you, well, the obligation to support all of those children is with the state. The state has an obligation to measure the benefit of public services happening for you and to ensure access. That's what the obligation is for the state. But if the state doesn't have the data, then it is a problem. And therefore, understand why Nevada may be slow in the reimbursement of the federal dollars, simply because they need to provide the data for the children who generated that money. It's called supplanting, when they would take money from one program and move it to another program. That's called supplanting, and it is against the law. But when it's only affecting your people, well, do you think that they care? I don't believe that they care. I think that failure is just something that is expected across the 50 states because they know that you're not getting an education. So they understand when it comes to who's failing and how to treat certain people who they expect to be ignorant. And that would be your people, my people who are not educated and who drop out every year. How can your people drop out of public school every year, every single year? They just don't make it. And I'm just trying to understand, well, what's happening that black children would not make it every year? And then, understand, I know who I am. And I know that I was able to raise my sons, and they were able to graduate above basic. Let's just put it like that. Because graduating above basic is a reality. But it's not a reality here in Nevada, as children are just socially promoted. And what does that mean? It means that they just, no matter what grade you are, no matter if you just got straight F's, that you would still be promoted to the next grade. And what's that going to do for you in America? I can promise you, it's not going to do anything at all. My phone is just not working. It's amazing how these devices are so controlled by the satellites that they are, whatever. We all live in America, and we have to all understand that truly that we watch the television, and that is the vision that they would like us to understand, that this somehow is our America. And the America that I know, freedom has never been free. And truly, I had to fight for the support services for my sons. I had to make sure that my sons were making it. You get me? So failure was just not an option. And my youngest one, they said, was severely mental retarded and communication handicapped, and I just took that as a word, whatever. It was a conversation. But At that time, Michael Rosenberg was in the State Disabilities Council for Area Board 3, and he agreed to work with me and my sons. And I showed up, and he showed up. And quite frankly, it was the best relationship ever because I was able to save my sons. And I can tell you, I was there on the school site council. I participated in the district advisory committee for compensatory dollars and Title I and the federal money. I participated on the school site council for, special education, the CAC. I mean, there was nothing that I considered to be unnatural. It was natural for me to be there in the schoolhouse where my sons were. Quite frankly, I think that they thought maybe I was doing a little bit too much, but I got to go to the board meetings, and it was important to understand how the governing board can choose to spend the money on things that the money was not generated for. Meaning that your school board can choose to spend your dollars however they want to spend them under states' rights. They're doing it supposedly to support all of the children. But when your children have just been abused, oppressed continually, and that there are no services that are measurable for the people who look like you, then I'm sorry, it's a problem. The officer that killed George Floyd was so entitled that he didn't have to. It was his perception and only his perception that mattered when it came to his life. And, when we go back to, Trayvon Martin, and Trayvon, he was just a kid. But he wasn't a kid to somebody because these neighborhood watch programs, they're all, protecting the rights of these people to maintain what they've managed to gather on this earth, but they can't take it with them. And they have insurance too. So the Stephen Clark murder was just simply an assassination, simply because in Sacramento they have a high death rate of African Americans being shot for failing to comply. And why is compliance death in America for African American people? We pay taxes just like them. The dollars that we're paying are going to pay the parents of the murdered souls that law enforcement took away their opportunity to live. And we, the people, have no right to speak out on the failed services, but we do. And we all must stand. I mean, I don't know how we organize the public services and understand how we will have the ability to share our concerns about the dollars that should be coming into our local community. I mean, why is it that we don't know how many 3-year-olds that are African Americans living in Clark County have had access to Early Start? Because they're not going to provide you with that information. They're not going to give you any information when you ask what services are happening for the children out there in the harbor. And they said, well, that's just a referral service. We don't do any real work. And I'm saying, how did that happen? That they can just move a child from their gifted and talented placement, and the parent have to agree to the move in that contract. And the contract is very rigid, and it violates a student's right to the offer of what would be free and appropriate. And it just does. It's the way I see it. And guess what else I see? I see that I don't have to go to court to file a lawsuit to tell the state to follow the rules, because the rules are just written. Do you not understand written language? I am confused, as someone would pretend that as a citizen you do not have the right to file a concern for the process that was established for the Office of Civil Rights. And they do not have to follow the governance structure of what is required for the receipt of funds. And I'm confused because everybody has rules that they have to abide by. That's why I'm sitting here on my back porch and doing it live on Facebook. And I had to use my laptop, and that's okay. Because I couldn't use my cell phone because the little button for live was not on my, it was not on my, it was not on my Facebook. So when you just go in there, I'll show you. When you go in there and you look, oh, where is that camera? And there's no live button. There's nothing there. And I said, well, what happened? It's what's on your mind. And, it's just real. Happy, heavenly, young king. And that's Devontae Clark. He's talking about his older brother. There were two boys in that family that woman suffered the death of. And that's just real. And in this America that I live in, I don't want to have to wake up and understand that perhaps somebody took the life of my son. Not in 2022. Not when we're free also. Not in the America that I know. And quite frankly, hey, I don't have songs to sing, but I do know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that failure in the public education system is something that should not be happening, basically. And why our children are walking around with letter grades of F and being promoted to the next grade, well, I'm concerned because to me that's just fraud. That letter grade of F represents fraud because that does not represent a free and appropriate public education, one that would lead to employment after the mandatory 12 years of compulsory education. Why should we just accept failure? I'm trying to understand because why? Because we're black? Because we're not running these programs and because they're paying their children to oversee our children and they would like to start at the age of 18. They're not talking about putting our children in the classroom over these children. They're talking about putting their children in the classrooms and creating opportunities for their families. And we will still be the harvest. And I'm saying black people are down on the strip performing. Hell, even Monique went down there. She got paid, but I'm sure she went down there. And all the black people who are caught up in the entertainment field, when they understand that entertainment is just what it is, putting on a show. For who? People who can afford to pay. And not everybody can afford to pay. And it's just so mind-boggling. Just to understand that black people can go and perform on the strip and make all kind of money, and they're going to pay their share of the fair taxes. But if you live here, there's only like a 2%, tax system for the public services. And so people who actually live here are not paying taxes, and they're running around putting all these condominiums up and bringing so many more people, and they know that housing is critical here. But then they're talking about people who can charge whatever they want for rents in a city that is entertainment only. And I do mean entertainment. Value, what are we talking about? I'm just trying to understand, is this America that will just continue to be the capital of America and will just continue to be the harvest? Well, I'm not the harvest anymore. And as I have learned to stay online, and so many people have been banned, and I know who I am, and I have my podcast over there on Anchor, and I have my videos where I recorded public meetings and shared on YouTube in America. This is the America that I know, and it is harvesting black children as we, the people, have no way to understand the lack of outcomes, but we can see what's happening. We're on the top of every negative category of outcomes in America. And then when we, the people, would like to have a conversation, well, they say, they've already done the plan, and the plan's been in the works since 2020. The plan has just been in the works since 2024. There's a battle-born plan, and nothing in that plan has changed. They've always planned to put 18-year-olds in the classroom, and I don't know with whose children. And I can understand what a child can't tell me a whole lot, and that's just real. But I believe that the state of Nevada has to provide the data, in which it created the same level of access for all of the children. And so we understand that, the census is how the dollars should be allocated, and perhaps the census is not how the dollars are being allocated, and perhaps they've just created however they want to spend the money, and they just spending that money like it's a grocery cart, shopping cart, and that's just real. And so, what can I say? This is truly the America that I know, and it's we the people, but we're not part of the people. You understand? When they're not measuring the outcomes and the benefit for your people, then perhaps you're still on the menu. And I know you are, because anytime the best black performers can come down and perform on the strip and pay their money and leave, and then there's no black clubs there's one, the Oasis. There's one black club out there in historic Westside, only one. And there's another black club, Sundown, but it's a little tiny rinky-dinky place. And quite frankly, it's not what it's not where our performers would perform, and that's just real. I promise you that. But in America, who are you? And what are you willing to do in 2022? Y'all like, subscribe, hey, follow my podcast on Anchor. I just had to get on here just because I could. Just because the option wasn't on my phone this morning and I rebooted and I still couldn't find the live button. But that's okay. There's a live button right here. And then I also have that other program, Zoom, if I had to. Y'all have a great day.